Hello, hope all is well. As you can maybe hear, my voice is a bit haggard as I've come down with a bit of a cold or a flu, but it should clear up in a couple of days. But I thought I'd still put this video together on the Sound Lab Reflex IRs. So first off, huge thanks to Kai from Sound Lab, who asked me if I was interested in checking out the new Reflex IRs. And as it was something I was quite interested in to begin with, I jumped on the opportunity per se. So that's what we'll be looking at today. So like the title of this video, are these IRs something for you? So you might have like quite an extensive collection of IRs sitting on your hard drive. And you know, you're not always sure which ones to go for. For certain tones, you might have your favorites. And so, you know, how many, say, vintage 30 variants are worth having, for example, or greenbacks and things like that. So these are questions that I ask myself as well, especially when looking at new gear as well. Like, do I really need this, given that, you know, the stuff that I already have sort of does the job the way I want to? And that's what we're going to look at here, you know, as there's a few things about the Reflex IRs, or at least how they were shot, that make them a bit more special and unique. You might have seen this picture here, but for me, I think the important part is actually down here, where they talk about the actual cab that makes for these, I guess, improvements or this change in sound. So the way I look at this, and the way I've understood this at least, correct me if I'm wrong, of course, is that, you know, you're treating some of the, I guess, characteristics of your usual 4x12 cabs and so on right at the source. So let's take this room, for example, and sort of recording vocals in this room. So it's not perfectly treated. I've got this huge desk in here, for example, that actually means that I have some build up and certain resonances on certain frequencies that I treat in post, if that makes sense. So after I've recorded, I'm editing, EQing things out to sort of compensate for those things. And that's something that you'll do as well with, I guess, you know, traditional cab design. At least that's how it's put here. And so what they've done, which is really clever, I think, is they've talked with Zilla to make sort of a custom cab design that sort of, I guess, circumnavigates some of those characteristics of, you know, say a 4x12 or a combo as it's shown here. And those things which are shown on this graph are, say, more of like these resonant peaks, and also say the fullness in the mids, or how some of these things come across. And of course, these are certain things that you might be dealing with later on in the mix or in post-production and things like that, or even in how you set your amp. And by doing this, you've got an IR that is almost, treated at the source, if that makes sense. So off the bat, you're already getting a much more almost optimized sort of signal through the IR. Now, of course, an IR can't, it's not like a one-stop fix-all solution. So if you have a really boomy amp sound to begin with, an IR won't fix that. You'll still have to be doing certain tweaks. But for some of these other things that are in there, so some of the resonances and how the mids kind of work, or how they're voiced or balanced, and especially in the high end, which I've found, it already puts you in a much better place, per se, or a much better spot to begin with. So hopefully that was a decent enough overview of the three IR sets. I thought I would throw together some different tones with different guitars using the different IRs from the different speaker sets so that you could get an idea of the kind of general vibe of each speaker, if that makes sense. So the thing is, with each IR set, you can further dial it into taste to your amp, your guitar and all that, as you have the different microphone sets that you can blend, of course, with the different levels of brightness, for example. So the general vibe of each speaker, what I found, for example, was that, and it was more apparent when tuning lower, so the Ibanez is in drop B, and my Gretsch is in drop F sharp, for example. So when I was tuning lower, the Gent 30 IR pack and the Mix 77 were a lot tighter in the bass response, whereas the Green 90 had sort of a bigger kind of bass to it, sort of like a bigger low end. However, that bigger low end translated really nicely to sort of like cleanish tones and also the sort of crunch tones that I was playing earlier on in the video. So in terms of processing on those guitar tones, the only thing I was really doing was adding a bit of compression to sort of get the levels right. And I added some multiband compression, but only on the heavier tones to control the chugs so there wasn't too much of a sort of a build-up on those lower mids. But apart from that, there was no other processing on there per se, so there's no low cut, no high cut. So you're getting essentially what the IR sounds like with hardly any post-processing at all. So to answer that question, is this something for you? And I think the best way that I can put it, at least to me, is that when I was first checking out the IR packs, the Green 91 in particular really stood out to me. And I remember writing to Kai when I was going through that pack, specifically the Green 90 Classic IR, because I loaded that up into like a fairly basic patch in the Fractal FM3, which was just the Class A30 Brilliant. It's like an EL84 Vox style amp with that IR and then just a delay. And playing through that with the Gretsch baritone, I just got lost playing and noodling around, and I felt really inspired by the sound that I was getting, thanks in part to that IR. And the result of that is what you heard at the start of this video. So that track and those ideas were in essence put together due to the sound that I was getting with a combination of that IR with the rest of my setup. So is that worth it? Is something like that worth an investment on my part? So thanks again for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content, please drop a like and subscribe, as it really helps me out. Hope to see you in the next one. Take care.